7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
And welcome to another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We're sitting here in the Zoom studio. We got a full house. Mr. Tony Johnson hasn't been on some of our regular sports pods. Been doing the golf pods with us, but we got you back for some regular sports talk. What's up, brother?
Not too bad. I mean, I'm very focused on the golf and studying for football, so I don't know, and UFC. But other than that, I'll follow along. You can spoon feed me some stuff, and I'll be okay. I'll survive.
All right, we'll hold your hand. You look like you're in like a corner office in Manhattan with the blinds in the back.
I know. Yeah, this is actually just my room. I couldn't be in the living room yet. Roommate is still sleeping. So, yeah, he had the spike mentality today, but he hasn't gotten up yet. So
yeah, sleeping at noon on a Saturday.
I like it. I like the move.
living his best life, I guess.
Yes.
Token's here as well. Token, what's up, brother? You're in a new, maybe an
Yeah,
angle.
he is. Yes, he is.
Oh, I remember the tree painting.
Yeah, it's a different angle.
I angled it a little on the table.
Do you have a bird feeder inside your house?
That's the second one that I got. It's a hummingbird feeder. I'm probably going to put it up on our upstairs balcony.
Okay, I was going to say, they can't get in your house to eat, right? So
sure they
could. Kind of an ill-effective bird.
If the windows
I could open up the door, yeah.
Do you really want to do something like that? For
a hummingbird? Probably. Other birds? Probably not.
You're going to have pigeons. You're going to have pigeons before you know.
Fuck pigeons.
And Spike, fuck off.
Yep. I have Bobby's mentality about pigeons with those birds.
Oh,
yeah.
Bobby, Jesus.
Nobody listening or watching knows what that is. You had to be on the golf course that day. So.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yes, he does not like pigeons or birds of any kind, as evidenced by
What
his
about
golf
Larry
game.
Bird? What about Larry Bird?
Ooh, we should ask him about Larry Bird. See if he actually likes Larry Bird. He's not a bird, though. He's a human who just happens to have a last name of Bird. Maybe he likes Sue Bird. She's kind of hot.
Good.
Or the Birdman, the former center in the NBA.
I don't know if Bobby thinks he's hot.
But I mean, he still might like him, though.
That's true. So, all right, boys, we got a jam-packed show here. We're talking some NFL, which, as you know, is always in the news 24/7. We've got big news. Obviously, we're going to talk about Mahomes' contract extension and what that means for not only the Chiefs, Mahomes, and the league. We got RAHEEM MOSTERT, a guy who has just burst onto the scene at the end here. We're going to talk about his trade request, a couple things with that, and we're going to talk about some gambling aspects as BETMGM has now signed a deal with the Denver Broncos, and they will be instituting a gambling lounge inside, what is it, Mile High Stadium? What is their field now, Invesco or whatever it is? Mile High Stadium.
It was Sports Authority Field at Mile High, but I don't know if that's still true or not.
It's been a few things. I can't keep up, so. But first and foremost, we're going to thank the sponsors here. Firstly, the 12-Ounce Sports Network, where we are broadcasted in both audio and video formats. Make sure you check out all the shows at 12ozsportsnetwork.com. Make sure that you check out the 12-Ounce Sports Store while you're there. You can find everything from golf polos, coffee mugs, beach towels, phone cases, etc. Once again, visit 12ouncesportsnetwork.com. And also Zingo TV, which is a streaming service on your iPhone, Android device, smart TV, Roku stick, etc. Please, when you're signing up for a new account, use promo code 12OZ, and it is 100% free to sign up for a new account. Download Zingo TV from your app store today and catch our show every Saturday. We got a concrete time slot. You're watching it tonight, Saturdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. And we'll also have many replays as well. Catch all of our shows at channel 761 on Zingo TV. All right, let's talk about Mahomes here, because that's the big news of the week in the NFL. We got a 10-year, $450+ incentive $1 million contract. The incentives can push it up to $503 million over 10 years. Super Bowl winning quarterback, MVP in his first, technically 3 years in the league. His first 2 starting years, he's won an MVP and a Super Bowl, and he looks destined to be amongst one of the all-time great quarterbacks of all time. I know that I don't want to project everything early because a lot of things can happen between now and then. The new average salary for a quarterback, or just in the league, the new highest average salary has been raised from $35 million with Russell Wilson to $45 million now per year with Pat Mahomes. Initial thoughts on this? I know none of us are Chiefs fans, so this will give us an objective. Spike, you had Tom Brady for 20 years now. The page has been turned in the book. This guy could be that next version of the longevity and the success that comes along with being a great quarterback.
Could be, yes.
I understand that. That's all you can say in the NFL.
Well, no, I understand. But especially with guys like Mahomes that have the ability to move, it seems like injuries catch up to them sooner rather than later, especially when it comes compared to the mobile, the stationary, the lead-footed guys like Brady. So that's where my concern lies, is the injuries. Not necessarily the talent is going to dip over the 10 years, because maybe it does. Most quarterbacks don't last that long, but Mahomes seems like the kind of guy that could. I'd just be more worried about the fact that when he moves out of the pocket, he takes those big hits, and not everybody can take that type of punishment over that long of a contract. That seems a little risky to me.
Well, Token, we've seen he's already had one injury last year where he missed, correct me if I'm wrong, 2.5 games from that injury, the knee injury, where it looked like he might have been missing more time based on the reactions from his teammates. But at this point, really the longevity, and full disclosure, I have a long-term bet with a friend that I didn't think he'd last more than 7 years in the league. I'm thinking I'm going to lose that bet, hoping my buddy forgets about that bet. But, a guy like this, we talked about, Spike just talked about the injury factor. I don't know if necessarily he runs as much as, say, Lamar Jackson does necessarily.
Oh, not even close.
But at the same time, you could make the argument on the other side. Peyton Manning was a lead foot, and you saw what happened to him injury-wise. Pat Mahomes just seems he has the tandem package that the longevity of, you're right, running quarterbacks don't last long in this league. But at the same time, he's got an arm like a freaking B-52 cannon coming out right there of his right shoulder. What do you see with this guy? How he could possibly change the NFL?
I really like his mobility, not just moving forward, how he can move side to side and avoid tackles and create a lot of passing opportunities out of probably where other people might be sacked or whatever. And he either creates a chance for an incomplete pass instead of losing yards, or potentially moving the ball down the field for a touchdown, especially if he passes down to like Hill or something that's very mobile and pretty wide open.
Yeah, you're right. He's got Tyreek Hill locked up. They got Mecole Hardman locked up. Those two burners there that, like you said, when he's in doubt, he can just throw the ball 60 yards, and one of those guys or both those guys might be down there. The talking point, nobody has really said that. You can make the argument, no athlete's worth the money. We're going to take that argument out. But no one's really saying, well, Pat Mahomes isn't worth $45 million. No one has said that. But the talking point basically has been the length of the contract, Tony, and that's the 10-year deal. We haven't seen a deal like that for a quarterback in a long time. I think Favre had a lifetime contract, which we know that he didn't actually see it out. But nobody's had a 10-year deal within the last 20 years, to my knowledge.
I can't remember one of that, but speaking on 10 years, that is something. I know he's only 24, 25, so it's probably fine. But I'm one of the people, very few people, I think he's drastically underpaid. Still, like most great quarterbacks, are just drastically underpaid for what they do.
Yes, but in a salary cap era, you got to have some give and take.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying that the people think that he's just making too much money that's laughable. Like, he's worth 100 plus. On this team.
I agree with you, but I think, like I said, I'm taking the argument of,
sure,
well, every professional athlete is overpaid in the sense of what they provide to the world. But I think everybody, again, I'm taking that argument out.
Yeah.
But I don't hear anybody saying he's overpaid. I don't hear that.
I haven't heard any of that either. And I wouldn't think there'd be a lot of people thinking that. I said this last year, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen, and I don't say that lightly. I said that week 3 or 4, and I stand by it. I just have never seen a guy that's better at the position. And in regards to the running of the ball, they on average, this has been charted, and I follow this really closely because it's really important, obviously, for the injury factor that Spike brought up, which is important. They called about 2 to 2.5 runs a game last 2 years ago, his first full year starting. And then last year they called less than one run per game, like quarterback run, whether that's a sneak, whether that's an out or something like that. Yeah. So I think that's going to continue to be in that range, something less than one per year. Yeah, he's a mobile guy, but he has done a really, really nice job of not taking punishment and not taking hits for the most part. He's learned well. Again, is he more likely than some others to get hurt? I think so. I would say so. But as he gets older and becomes a smarter quarterback, which I just think takes years, Russell Wilson, your guy, Aaron, I think is a great example of that. He's just become a much smarter quarterback throughout his career. I think he'll be fine, barring any, unfortunate catastrophic type of stuff, which you can't plan for. But
right.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Well, and the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes are both covered in the event that he does suffer a career-ending injury as well.
Sure.
Tony, is this long-term contract, again, we haven't seen this in, probably the life that I've been following football. And I don't know if we're going to see this based on a lot of different factors, which we'll talk about here. Is this an anomaly, or do we think there's a trend with some of these guys? Lamar Jackson is coming up. Deshaun Watson is coming up. Josh Allen is coming up if he's able to perform more successfully, and finally win the division for the first time in God knows how long. Do we see a trend of long-term contracts, these guys locking up in these certain spots, or do we look at we've got it on both sides. We've got the Dak Prescott situation here where he's going to be probably playing franchise tag to franchise tag. And then we have Pat Mahomes on the flip side, who's playing for $45 million a year plus incentives for the next decade. What's the trend? Is this an anomaly, this 10-year deal, or is this could be a start of a trend? Or is that just player dependent?
In my opinion, yeah, it's a case by case basis. And again, I'm not a GM. I'm not making these decisions. But if I was, this is a pure anomaly. This is an outlier, as they would say. This is the best quarterback in the game, I think, by a pretty clear margin. And I just can't see anybody else dictating this kind of salary. Lamar Jackson scares me for a multitude of reasons. And there's nobody else besides, I think, him that, to me, would garner that kind of interest. Deshaun Watson's a fine player, but he's no better than a fine quarterback. I mean, he's a very good quarterback for his era.
I think he's going to develop, too. As long as Bill O'Brien doesn't stunt his growth.
Maybe, yeah. The situation that he's in, not having a premier head coach like Mahomes has, I don't know. I'm not as big of a buy there. And Dak Prescott is just, I would call him slightly above average.
Who's better, Watson or Prescott?
Watson. I like Watson a lot more. Just my opinion. And your guy in Buffalo, I think, has a long way to go. Buffalo is
but he's not up for a contract right now. So
no, but even when he does get to be, he'll get paid the X amount of dollars that the market will dictate. But I don't think it'll be any sort of long-ish, crazy long-term deal.
Well, let's take Josh Allen here, Spike. Say Josh Allen with Tom Brady out of the division and Cam Newton doesn't pan out. He wins 2 straight division titles, and let's say he goes to 2 straight AFC championships. Right at the time his contract's up, Mark Sanchez style, even though Mark Sanchez's contract was not up.
It would be kind of like that, yeah. You're right.
Let's say Josh Allen over the next 2 years goes to 2 AFC championships. The Bills want to lock him up. Do you think it's a smart move to go 7 years with a guy like that? You're gonna institute enough clauses to get yourself out of financial desperation in that point. But if guys like Deshaun, okay, let's say in 2 years, let's flip it. I'll give you both scenarios and you can answer on both, Spike. Let's say in 2 years. Let's say in 2 years, Deshaun Watson, or next year, Deshaun Watson goes to the AFC Championship. Cam Newton doesn't pan out. Would you put your Belichick cap on? Would you give Deshaun Watson 7-year contract to go to the Patriots?
Yeah. 7 year. I always balk at contracts of that length, especially in the NFL, where tides can turn so quickly, but I think that's sort of the norm. I think that's something that has to be done in order to lock up the guy that you want, is to give them the contract of that length. especially if you have enough clauses in there to get out of it so that it's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah,
I'd
I
offer
could-
Deshaun Watson 7 years next year. I would.
yeah,
Not Josh
and-
Allen, but I'd probably offer Josh Allen 5 if he went to 2 straight AFC championships.
Yeah, Josh Allen, I think, is one. He reminds me a lot of a Derek Anderson, where he's going to have a year or two. He's going to look,
That's an interesting
have
comparison.
that kind of flashes of brilliance. He's going to get the contract and then just be a perennial backup, as soon as he loses the starting job. Which
Well, that's not biased at all. I know you hate Josh Allen.
no, well, that's the thing. I actually I've been warming to the guy over the last, especially over last season. I actually bet the Bills pretty hard towards the end of the year. I just, as soon as Josh Allen goes downhill, I don't see him coming back up. There are guys that can recover. There are guys that can, lose their job and still be in contention for starting. Tyrod Taylor is a great example of that right now. But Allen, I just don't see him having the ability to do that.
Well, Token, something that I kind of thought about this week when I saw the Mahomes extension, and I thought about this not because of the Mahomes extension, but I thought about this in terms of we're looking at Deshaun Watson possibly leaving next year, and other quarterbacks as well, potentially, if the price tag gets too high. Should the NFL implement the NBA style of the team you play on being able to offer you more money? That in an attempt to keep all of the teams parity together. It doesn't really work in the NBA because it seems like these guys can make the money on the back end through so many different avenues, that the being able to offer the more money for the home team, because these guys all want to play with each other. It might be different in the NFL. I think that I don't know what the name of that clause is, but I think that a being able to offer your guy more money for the team who he plays for versus all the other teams, I think that should be implemented in the NFL.
Yeah, something along those lines. I don't think it would work great as much as you believe. I think it would work better than the NBA's probably. However,
There's not a ton of guys in the NFL who are at least proactively saying, I want to go bunk up, or I want to go play with that guy, and that guy. And the NFL can actually make that work. It's not as easy as in the NBA when, these guys start throwing a little temper tantrum. I just liken it to 10 years ago when I was following Dwight Howard. The guy turned into a 12-year-old the way he wanted to get out of Orlando so bad. And I just don't see that in the NFL as much. And I don't see the logistics even being in the NFL, the availability to just trade guys willy-nilly and, offer 4 first-round picks for a guy like the NBA can. It just doesn't happen that way. It's not as easy in the NFL. I don't know. To me, it seems like this might be something that could be investigated as far as it may not have to be 50, 80 million more, but another year at the average value that you're getting, it could be something.
Yeah, it could be even 10 to 20% or something, and something reasonable for the players and the owners, and that might be more likely to work. But however, like you're talking 25 to 50% more of the contract value, that's definitely not going to work.
Yeah, it's going to work in keeping the guys probably, which I think is kind of what the NFL wants. I don't know if movement is always the best for the league as well. I mean, to try to build legacies like Favre and the Packers, Favre is synonymous with them, but he does have that blip where he played for the Jets and the Vikings. Joe Montana, really nobody remembers his time with the Chiefs. Tom Brady, time will tell if we remember his time with the Buccaneers. Anyways, et cetera. I could go on and on with that. So,
no, that's absolutely right along those regards. I mean, if they want to try and build dynasties and long-term, like division winners and stuff like that, and maybe make the divisions from top to bottom maybe a little more closer, I think that's a good idea.
It feels now more like you're stuck with a guy. In my opinion, it feels now more like, especially at the quarterback position. I mean, Matt Stafford can't stay healthy. Let's use your guys. Matt Stafford can't stay healthy, but at the same time, the Detroit Lions draft like pure shit. So they almost feel like they're stuck with Matt Stafford. Even though I don't think Matt Stafford's a bad quarterback, I think there were probably 2 or 3 spots in Matt Stafford's career where the Detroit Lions could probably have taken – hell, they could have taken Pat Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, and they probably could have taken Baker Mayfield. I don't know. I'm just using guys off the top of my head. They probably couldn't have taken Mayfield, but they've had picks high enough to be able to look at those spots.
Take players like that, and yeah. missed opportunities. And the
But
case,
I felt like they were locked into Matt Stafford because of numerous factors. One being his contract, and two being that they're just a very strange organization when it comes to drafting.
you could also say a very mediocre team with horrible drafting habits. I mean, based on needs and all that, it seems like they tossed those out the window. So
I just feel like, and again, this is a different tangent, I feel like Matt Stafford is probably a good quarterback stuck in a bad situation. If you put him on a different team, he probably would have had a better career.
There's no offensive line whatsoever. You can't have a running game to open up the passing game, and
yeah, they've drafted so badly. They just haven't helped him at all.
Yeah, we even had Reggie Bush for a while. That was pretty decent, but with that offensive line,
in a spot like that, with the contract situations, he could leave. He could. I mean, it would be more lucrative for him to stay in Detroit, but it's, again, with endorsement deals and so many other things, they can make that money back, no problem. And that leads me to with this, because now for the next 10 years, Mahomes carries a cap hit of $45 million. So the question really is as the salary cap continues to rise over the next decade, it's good for the Chiefs, but is Mahomes doesn't seem like the type of player that's going to hold out in the middle of his contract. But his agent may say if he wins 2-3 more Super Bowls, $45 million is budget quarterback money, maybe in half a decade.
Well, from what I understand, there's some stipulations with how the salary cap evolves and how much he'll get paid. So there's a percentage basis.
He's a percentage of the salary.
Yeah, his salary cap will rise. Yeah, his salary will rise. So I mean, it's. Yeah, I don't. He doesn't seem like that guy. Number one, and two, if you want to win, I mean, we can talk about Spike, and his Patriots, but I think there's some really strong reasoning behind why a lot of those Patriots teams were good for a while. Is that Tom Brady was really underpaid at the quarterback position. That helps a lot. So now that you have a huge chunk of money here with Mahomes, it's going to be more difficult to put the proper money in the right spots, because as we know, it takes much more than just a quarterback to win Super Bowls. So, I think there's something to be said for that too. My guess is Mahomes won't be that guy, and he won't be that guy for those two reasons.
He cares about the winning.
Yes, correct.
It's funny you brought that up. ESPN put out this week a built a whole team with Pat Mahomes' $45 million salary. I sent it over to you guys. A couple of names that I just wanted to point out from this. This is an entire team constructed, and I want to know if you'd rather have Mahomes or you'd rather have this team. Quarterback, Lamar Jackson, $2.5 million.
I'll take Lamar Jackson over Mahomes any day. Year to year, contract to contract, I'd take Lamar Jackson over Mahomes.
Let me finish. I'm going to build
You don't need to finish for me. I'm saying I would take Lamar Jackson over Mahomes.
No, I disagree 100%.
What?
You
As
can.
a runner? What, really?
You can all you want.
He runs, man.
As a winner or as an athlete?
That's why I'm saying year to year, contract to contract, I'll take Jackson over Mahomes. As
Oh,
soon as
he's
Jackson gets hurt, fuck it, I'll take Mahomes. But until that time, I'm taking
because he's making $4. Okay, I see. Yeah, well,
he's making $2.5 million.
Oh, 2.5? Yeah, I'd rather have it at 2.5. I agree. Yes,
but I'm going to build.
I didn't know what you meant. Oh, yeah, obviously.
I'm not looking for a comparison. This is a comparison of this entire team versus Mahomes' contract. And you're talking about how Brady took pay cuts to build teams similar to this. Now, obviously, these guys are all on different teams, but you have Lamar Jackson at $2.5 million. You have Nick Chubb at 1.8, Juju Smith-Schuster at $1 million, Chris Godwin at $1 million, Cooper Kupp at $1 million, George Kittle at $1 million. Let's see, going to the defensive side, you have T.J. Watt at 2.3, Darius Leonard at 1.5, Tre'Davious White at 2.5 million, Minkah Fitzpatrick at 4.6 million, Xavier Woods at 600,000, Joey Bosa at 6.5 million. I mean, that's a team. And again, Tony, we talked about this through text. I understand it's a lot of rookie deals, but I think it's just a symbol to show you of one player. We've said it time and time again. One player does not. You just said it actually on this podcast. One player does not make up an entire winning franchise. And $45 million is a lot of money. So,
but what was Mahomes' rookie deal? I mean, you could just that's a silly argument to make, because those guys are on rookie deals. So Darius Leonard's going to make $16 million a year in 2 years at least. So Well,
But at the same
then what are we talking about? I mean,
I think it's a symbol to show you that you can find, like Belichick, you can find diamonds out of dirt for these kind of prices for $45 million. Belichick, if Pat Mahomes hit the open market, I think Belichick would be the only GM that wouldn't be involved in the process.
right. I agree.
So it's just to say, would you rather have your money tied up in this one guy who could be all-world, Hall of Fame, best quarterback ever, but may not win? I mean, Dan Marino's a guy who's always in these conversations, but he never won a Super Bowl. Now, his contracts were way different from back in the day, but what if Mahomes wins no Super Bowls? The Chiefs do they have egg on their face?
Kind of. I mean,
What if Belichick builds a roster like this and wins 3 more, and Andy Reid puts $45 million to the quarterback and they don't win it? But what if they get Peyton Manning style? They're bouncing the second round, bouncing the AFC Championship, lose in the Super Bowl as a huge favorite. What if I mean, Andy Reid's been known to have some balls bounce bad his way.
Yeah, and some time clock management problems as well. But
the real question here is, with this $45 million salary, put your GM hat on or your fan hat on, would you rather have Pat Mahomes with no Super Bowls, or would you rather have let's just take the Super Bowls out. Would you rather have Pat Mahomes, or would you rather have a team that's competitive? What if the Chiefs aren't competitive because they can't pay anybody else? I mean, look at the Lions. Look at the Lions.
I know.
The Chiefs don't draft as bad as the Lions. So
I think they'll be competitive.
Not even close.
I think they'll be. He's that good that they'll be competitive.
For all 10 years? I mean, you're talking about his prime.
Barring injury, yes. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen. He can outright win you games. So, yes, I think they'll be because of that. But he's the only guy I would say that I would pay the 45 for. Almost everybody else you could name, I would not. I'd rather go the Belichick route. Every other person. Every single one. There's not another quarterback I would pay an insane amount of money that I would want to. I think Belichick is doing it the right way. I hate the guy, but he is doing it the absolute right way. I mean, he's easy guy to hate, and that's not hard.
Yeah, it's not hard to hate. I get
yeah, I mean, you can hate the person, but if they're good at their job, they're good at their job. So certainly he is a very, very, very – so he probably is the best GM out there. You know, maybe too. You could make an argument that in regards to evaluating talent, he could very well be the best, not just as a head coach.
Well, I mean, he takes that Parcells line. If you're going to make the meal, you have to buy the groceries.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with that all the time. I mean, it hasn't really worked for Bill O'Brien, but at the same time, we could shit on Bill O'Brien as much as you want. I think he's made the playoffs every year. He's been there, except for one, when Deshaun Watson went down.
Yep. No, he's done
He buys the groceries
better than average job.
But
he's done better than average job. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, so that leads me to the last point here with the Mahomes is Westgate now has a prop out, which let me just disclaimer this by saying anybody who puts their money into a bet for a decade, you're absurd. Put your money into like a bank CD for that price. But for entertainment purposes, we're going to address this. The Westgate has put out a bet this week that over under 1.5 Super Bowls for the Chiefs between now and the expiration of Pat Mahomes' contract. The over is -125. The under +105. So, Spike, where are you putting your money? Your Monopoly money?
No, I don't think he has a team around him to help him win it all. It's just too difficult in this league to win when you have one guy making that much money.
Oh, by the way, if you bet the yes and they win 2 Super Bowls in the next 2 years, you get paid out automatically.
Oh, is that true?
So you don't necessarily have to keep your money in for a decade.
That helps.
If you bet the yes. Actually, if you bet the no, you can throw your ticket away too. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Light it on fire.
Yeah, you're good at that, Token. So what would you bet? Yeah. Yes, -125 over 1.5 Super Bowls, or no under 1.5 Super Bowls at +105?
Me personally, I would pick the yes, because I think they are going to do that within a 4-year stretch.
Wow.
And they're going to get exactly 2 in the next 10 years, though.
That is a distinct prediction.
So in the next 4 years, they'll get 2, and then they
won't have any 6 later.
Doesn't matter. You can cash your ticket. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be in a short period of time where they get 2, and they're going to struggle shortly after that.
You can cash that yes ticket, and then immediately in 4 years, when this country's gone crazy, you could probably bet it on the presidential election of 2024.
Hey, there we go.
When we're allowing that now. I know West Virginia allowed it for like 4 hours and then took it away. So, Tony Johnson. Tony Johnson, you on the yes or the no in this spot? The over or the under?
I don't like theoreticals very much.
Well, good. You're going to answer.
Yeah. I would say no if I had to bet it. It's hard to win Super Bowls on a consistent basis. I mean, again, I think the contract does matter. I think Spike's right. The contract does matter. The amount of it is going to be harder to put a better team around him. It's just so competitive year in and year out. It's you can have a bad game, or he gets hurt. He gets hurt in the first half of the AFC divisional game, and it's just they lose that year. And it's I would say the under if I had to bet it, but and plus it's plus 105. Yeah, that's the side I'd be on, but I don't love it. I don't love it.
The only reason I would actually take the yes is if they were successful, you may not have to wait 10 years. For no, you have to wait 10 years for your bet to come in.
That's true.
Yeah, that's
the point.
With that bet, does it say he has to start in the Super Bowl, or does he have to
It's
be
just
on
the Chiefs.
team?
It's not a Mahomes prop. It's the Chiefs prop.
The Chiefs,
Okay.
yeah.
So he doesn't have to start in any game. He could just retire tomorrow, and then you're stuck with a bet of Matt Moore trying to win 2 Super Bowls or whoever.
Just the next 10 years they would have to win
It's
too.
till the 2031-32 season end. So I think that's the life of his contract. Yes.
I wonder if they've taken any action on that.
I tweeted out Jay Cornegie to see if I did it this morning to see if he's gotten any action. He hasn't gotten back to me as of the recording of this podcast. So I'll be interested to see it. I mean, I don't know if he's even going to give me that information. I just want to know if they took action. I don't even know how much, but I would be on the yes, just because I think you're right. You do have the best quarterback in the game currently, talent-wise, and you do have Kelsey, Hardman, Hill locked up. You got a good running back in Edwards-Helaire. They have a good enough defense that if they're scoring 40, they may only have to surrender 30, and then Reed would be okay with that. I would take the yes for those reasons. They're going to have talent for the next 5 years, like Token said, and you don't have to wait all 10 years. Say they win the next 2, I can cash the bet in 2 years. So that I may have to lay a little extra juice just for the sheer fact of not having to wait 10 years for my money. But I'd put that money in something else, savings account, CDs. I'd get better return probably. To get 5%, to take the no, have to wait 10 years and only get 5% on my money is just it's
not worth it.
Yeah, so.
You can invest in gold and it'll probably go up 10% easily. So.
Yeah, well, actually, gold would be much better investment overall. Yeah,
gold,
sure.
Vanguard,
anything really.
Yeah. So it would be a tough. I can't see a lot of people laying action on the no, and maybe that's why they juice the yes, because people are going to bet yes because they don't have to hold their money for a decade. So, all right, so let's move into the team that played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl here, and they have some rumblings at running back that they are going to trade Raheem Mostert. His agent has requested a trade. We all know Raheem Mostert. We watched him in the NFC Championship game run all over the Green Bay Packers for like 220-something yards and 4 touchdowns. It was crazy. But he has requested to be paid like a running back and not a special teams guy, which he has his right to do. The 49ers look like they have said thanks but no thanks, and they're exploring options to ship him out of town. Before we get into this, Raheem Mostert last year, more rush yards in the last 9 games, 760 and 12 touchdowns than his entire career previous to that. His entire career previous to that, he had 645 and 2 touchdowns. I think he had stints with 3 different teams. He was second in the league with those 760 yards from week 12 to the end of the season behind one and only Derrick Henry, who seemed to lap the field on everybody. So there are some pros in favor of Mostert, but the cons are that he hasn't done it for more than, 7 weeks. Or 9 weeks, whatever it was. In this year, he's scheduled to receive $2.575 million in the second of a 3-year deal that he signed. He's asking in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 to $8 million as a running back. The text I got from Tony this weekend, I want you to reiterate this. So what are your thoughts on Raheem Mostert asking for a trade?
I believe, I'm not sure what the exact quote is, but Mostert doesn't matter.
Yes,
I
that's
believe
about
what
right.
I said. Okay. Yes. And I stand by that, surprisingly enough. Again, nothing against the guy personally. Maybe a very fine guy, but a 28-year-old running back with no history of actually being good and an offensive line that was incredibly better than expected last year. And again, good kudos to San Francisco. But
Right.
you ran behind a really good line. I have zero interest in this, and I think if you can have less than zero leverage, I would think that Mostert has that at this point because San Fran has plenty of options at running back, and there's always a lot of options even on the market because they're kind of a dime a dozen, unfortunately. Yeah, so I don't see where he stands. Again, he wants to do what he wants to do. I support his whatever he wants to do is fine, but I don't think it's going to work out for him. That's my thought.
Now, Spike, I tend to agree with Tony in this spot. I like the way Mostert ran, but at the same time, he has basically less than zero leverage. He has a 8-9 game stretch of really good play, but the rest of his career doesn't speak to that same level of talent. And the San Francisco 49ers, they're getting Jerick McKinnon back next year. And also they have Tevin Coleman, who does have problems staying healthy, but if McKinnon can stay healthy, that's a healthy 1-2 for us right there. Breida's already left town. Mostert looks like he's on his way as well. How much would Raheem Mostert would have been used in this offense with McKinnon and Tevin Coleman there as well?
Oh, almost none. He would get, third string type carries, which is, basically non-existent. So nobody would even know his name. Nobody would even be talking about this guy if he were demanding another contract, if that were the case. So, yeah, best of luck to him on the open market, but San Francisco is not going to pay the money.
Right. And token, any team that's going to trade for him has to be willing to pay him that money. How will he fare in a like you talked about with the offensive line, how will he fare in a non-Kyle Shanahan offense? We don't have any information other than that to prove that he's a good running back worth $5 to $8 million.
I would say, based on what we know, you're expecting average at best, and you're probably going to get mediocre, to be honest. So, especially for the value of the money.
Well, I would, if I'm a GM, if I'm expecting average, I'm not paying him $8 million.
No, exactly. Not even close to 5.
That's probably the start of the upper tier. I mean, we know Le'Veon and guys like that are making close to 16. So you figure $8 million is probably the start of the upper tier, the upper average running backs. And what would you expect for $8 million? 800 yards? Is he going to give that to you? He's not going to be the lead guy in any system.
Probably not.
So and like I said,
unless if you really want a returner or something for special teams, and even then,
well, he can do all that as well. But
with all the new rules and all that changing, returners might go down in value too. So
they have, yes, they have already.
You don't see a lot of specialty returners anymore either. I don't not that I know of. So
they don't exist.
I came up with a list of potential destinations for Raheem Mostert on teams that may actually be inclined to pay him the money. The first one I came up with is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think if I'm going to give this guy $6 million, I could pair him with Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler is more of the scat back kind of guy. I don't think he's going to be able to carry a load like Melvin Gordon could have. So Raheem Mostert could come in and fill the Melvin Gordon role. And for $6 million, might be a steal if he's getting split carries. If he's getting 15, 20 carries a game, he might be able to be of value. So the Chargers were one spot that I thought maybe would actually make sense for him. Speaking with the same thing, we talked about Le'Veon Bell, who makes $16 million, I believe is his number, $13 million, whatever his number is. I actually like pairing Mostert with Le'Veon Bell in New York. Le'Veon Bell just isn't the guy who can do the 100 touches a year anymore. Like the 300 carries, 100 catch season. That's not Le'Veon Bell anymore. And whether you agree with that or not, it's just he's not worth a $13 million price tag, unfortunately. And maybe this guy Mostert, you come in $5, $6, $7 million, and you can eventually get Le'Veon Bell out of town. So far it hasn't worked. Whether you believe that's because of Bell or because of Gase or because of both, that hasn't worked so far. So I thought maybe Mostert would fare pretty decently in the Jets offense, complementing Bell and eventually maybe supplanting Bell. The other one I saw was the Jaguars. Fournette is probably as good as gone next year after this year because they didn't pick up his option, his fifth-year option. So he's probably as good as gone next year. Mostert could probably come in there, have a few good years, maybe part of a rebuilding process, but 2-3 good years in Jacksonville maybe gets him a contract. which is going to be tough. Like you said, he's 28 years old. So by that time he's 30. So he's looking at his last contract more than likely right here. So those were 3 spots. I don't know if you guys have any potential spots you'd like to see him in, but those were 3 spots I thought he could probably have his best chance of extending his career.
I was just going to say, I think the only other spot, and you may laugh at me for this, but if he is, if he's looking for that number 1 role, this isn't going to make sense. But if he can live with splitting carries and he can live with taking,
if you're going to say the Patriots, it ain't happening for $6 or $7 million.
Well, and that's exactly what I was thinking, because they just got that the settlement agreements with the Antonio Brown and Aaron Hernandez contract, so they just opened up about $7.5 million on the cap.
Correct, but if they spend it on Mostert, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, oh yeah, I would too. But I think for Mostert, I mean, it wouldn't be that bad of a spot because he has the potential to supplant Sony Michel as the number 1 back. Between Michel and White, there's really nobody worth talking about behind them.
Rex Burkhead, baby.
Oh, fuck off, Rex Burkhead.
Is he a better? I think he might be a better fit. I think he might be a better fit splitting carries in Buffalo with Singletary, though.
That might make more sense, but I'm just saying New England has money now, so they may go a little spend crazy and try to seduce somebody like that with $7 million instead of the 3.5 or 3.1, whatever he's making now.
Would you say they spend that $7 million on one guy or multiple guys? Because there's been talks also that the Patriots are interested in bringing Antonio Brown back.
Oy.
If you're gonna blow your load on one guy, you spend it on Mostert or you spend it on Brown?
Oh,
I mean,
jeez.
Or Josh Gordon at this point.
Yeah, Josh Gordon probably makes more sense. I don't know. I think Brown's baggage makes him persona non grata in New England, and he wouldn't be welcomed back unless like Cam Newton makes a gigantic stink about getting him because he wants more or better weapons.
The number 2 quarterback?
Yeah, that's if he starts. I agree. I'm not sure he starts.
You don't think Cam Newton starts?
I'm not sure he'll start.
All
He's
right.
not any good anymore. I've watched a lot of Cam Newton over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I don't think he can play. Now, if he can help his throwing motion and things like that, maybe. But I'm not sure. I think the contract is the way it's set for a reason. And I think they love Stidham too. And whether that's correct or not, I have no idea. But I've known to trust that managerial piece there in New England more so than others. So if they like Stidham, then there's probably a good reason for it.
Is Everson Griffin still a free agent? The guy from Minnesota, would he take a contract, $7 million, to go play in New England?
I don't know. I don't know if
I
he's
don't
still
even know the
free
name.
I'm looking at this free agent, the remaining free agents left, and this is as accurate as July 4th. But obviously, I can rule out Jadeveon Clowney. He's not going to New England for $7 million. He's not going anywhere for $7 million.
No.
But the next best I see on here is like Everson Griffin, and I think he could really help a Pats defense for sure. And he left Minnesota because he says he wants to win a Super Bowl. I mean, I think you can win one in Minnesota, but at the same time, I think you can win one in New England too. So I don't know. It's interesting to see.
There are 2 comparable teams at this point, New England and Minnesota. They're like borderline good enough to make the playoffs and possibly a deep run to the Super Bowl, but they could also fall flat on their ass and be 3rd or 4th in the division as well.
Well, let me
I
ask
think
you.
Minnesota's better than borderline, aren't they? I mean, I think they're a top end.
I would say
team, right?
I would say a step above, but
They're a
not
tough
much
division,
above.
but they can't
Yeah,
really
tough
afford to
division.
fuck up their division. But I think they're a top 10 team, I think. Let me ask you this. I just saw this name. If you had $7 million for your team, you're a GM here. I'll start with you, Tony, and I'll go to Token and Spike. If you had $7 million, you needed a running back, would you take RAHEEM Mostert, or would you take what's left of Devontae Freeman?
Well, it would matter what I have already in the stable,
You
certainly.
need
but
a
I mean,
running back. You need a starting
I
running back.
just need a running back.
You need a starting running back.
Well, I don't know who's available. I mean, this is do I have to choose between one of those 2? Is that the question?
I didn't stutter. Yes, you have to choose between one of those 2.
I mean, Mostert if I have to choose between the 2, but I don't want to. I don't want either one.
According to this website I'm looking at, the next available best running back that's on the market right now is Lamar Miller.
Lamar Miller. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't want him either. I don't want any of these guys.
Ugh.
You're stuck. You got to take something.
I want none of this.
Otherwise, your kicker's running dive plays.
You can figure out the running back position. There's a lot of teams that have done it for, the 1 to 3 million range, bare bones. You can do it. Kansas City did it last year, and they won a Super Bowl. It can be done.
Token?
Out of those two, I think I'd take Freeman just because he has more experience as a starter. But I don't feel comfortable with his injury history and all that. So
Yeah, that's why I avoided him, yeah. I didn't like the injury history.
Dwight?
Flip a coin. I don't give a shit. Like
it lands sideways.
Yeah, land straight up. Now you got to pick.
Yeah, well, and then I don't know.
I'm taking Mostert.
I was gonna say you probably throw out a deal to Mostert first and hope he doesn't dick you around.
Well, let me ask you this: you got a 28-year-old guy who's more than likely got fresher legs than the beat-up Devontae Freeman. I think that's. I don't want to say it's a no-brainer because I like the way Devontae Freeman runs. I'm just saying Devontae Freeman has run for a while, and Mostert really doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires, to use a bad cliche. That would be my spot. So, moving along here, something that caught my eye, and I'm hoping that it happens in Vegas, even though, based on the way my bank account's set up, I probably won't be at Raider Stadium a lot this year or many years because I don't have that kind of money. As you probably know, guys, if you don't know, legalized sports gambling has made its way to Colorado, and the Broncos have basically been blitzing the markets. They have signed now their third partnership deal with a betting company, and that is BetMGM, which is one we're all familiar with because we ran one of our contests on it. Last month, they also announced deals with FanDuel and Betfred USA, which I've never heard of. Betfred. That's a weird name for a fucking betting site or anything. Betfred. Unless the guy's name is Fred.
UK-based site.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
So the deal basically says that the BetMGM is going to have a lounge inside of whatever the name of the Broncos stadium is now, where basically it's a 21 and up lounge, but there will actually not be any kiosks there. Their focus will be on signing fans up for their mobile app. Now, I've seen this in a couple. FanDuel got into the New Jersey Devils, got in with the New Jersey Devils. I think there's a lounge in the Prudential Center in Newark. I'm sure there's some other places as well, but this is something I thought that we would hear more so from Vegas and the Raider Stadium than before the Broncos. I feel like the Broncos capitalized on a huge opportunity here. What are your guys' thoughts on this potentially being part of the NFL landscape and maybe the sports landscape, as when you go to a stadium, there are betting lounges where I don't know if that's the only spot you can go in and bet, but there's these basically these betting lounges where you can go in and bet sports that you're watching or all around the world.
In my opinion, it's great business from the companies that are doing it for sure. I mean, they're going to probably get more handle. And of course, especially with in-play betting and stuff, if they do have that available in the lounge or on the app, or you're able to deposit on your app at the stadium, then you're likely to probably put more in action and all that. And
so I'm reading
to see a lot of influence on lines in those games, especially the Broncos, if MGM's having that too, because, Broncos fan, I'm going to bet the Broncos.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because the BetMGM lounge inside of Mile High Stadium or Bronco Stadium will be offering what's called a first possession payoff bet. And on the app, it will revolve around the opening drive. There will be odds on turnover, touchdown, field goal, or punt. So I'm sure that's likely to develop a lot of handle just specifically based on that. I wonder if they'll expand on that final drive, first drive of the second half, last drive of the first half. I'm sure they'll expand on that if it's a popular thing. Also, in conjunction, BetMGM will be offering Bronco fans a chance to win an experience at the new Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. So I guess there's going to be some kind of bet or drawing where a Broncos fan or a person inside the Broncos Stadium can win an all expenses paid trip to Las Vegas for the Broncos Raiders game that takes place every year in Raider Stadium. So they're definitely, if this is the start of what we see in a lot of these stadiums, I'm excited for the future of these lounges. I don't know too much about them, but if this is what they're going to be like, all that and more, it sounds like fun, Tony Johnson.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is just, I think, a typical sort of sponsorship when you have, new popular items like, sports betting is sort of newish, for a lot of states, including Colorado. And, these athletic teams are just trying to make some money as well, too. So I think there's a lot of that obviously going on. But, yeah, you can create a good experience for the fan. And, I'm obviously all of us here are all for, sports gambling. Certainly there's not I understand that there are people on the flip side of this that may not support, gambling on sports in general.
That's their opinion, but they don't.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's fine. No, totally fine. I agree. But I mean, as the way the law is now and what's going on, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. I think, as you said, Aaron, we'll see this more from other places. I'm surprised. Well, you guys would know this. You're the hockey guys. Does the T-Mobile Arena have a space? I thought they had something like for William Hill. They don't. Really? Okay. I'm surprised they don't have a little thing
too.
like this. That would make a lot of sense.
Especially since MGM owns half the arena.
Well, and I think that's part of why we don't see those kinds of things, because MGM probably just hasn't figured out the technology, which why they haven't figured it out yet is beyond me. But then
it looks like they're going to put it in Denver. So,
but then they partnered up with William Hill, and so they advertise the app. They have the quote unquote line change sponsored by William Hill, because everything in that fucking arena is sponsored by something or other.
It's true.
And you would think that they would have said, all right, William Hill, at least get a kiosk in here so people can make deposits while they're in the arena. But yeah, they haven't done
they haven't done that. Okay. I didn't know that. I'm surprised. That's surprising.
Now, I've heard since Caesars is one of the official partners with the NFL that there has been talks of putting something for Caesars sportsbooks inside the Raiders Stadium, but I haven't seen any official announcements yet. This is the first official one I've seen for the NFL. And then I know that when it goes fully live retail-wise in New Jersey, I think it's going to go into the Meadowlands as well. But you're right. I mean, Vegas, could have been something Vegas capitalized on, which they're not the first to do it. It's all over European soccer. But in America, Vegas could have capitalized on it. I mean, because the thing is, as legalized sports betting becomes more nationwide, Vegas has to reinvent itself as reasons to come to Vegas. So this would have been one of them. Hey, come watch your team play, the Knights, and while you're there, stop by the such and such's deposit station, or even make your bet at the deposit stations. I mean, they got ATMs in there. Just put the damn deposit. You get the cash out of the ATM, put it right in the fucking William Hill.
Yeah, you put an ATM 5 feet away from it, and
exactly. I mean,
goes right into action.
Well, I'm out of a job. Maybe I should just be a consultant for some gambling companies.
There you go.
ATM, kiosk, right next to each other. Do it. So, but yeah, I gotta say, overall, this is for nationwide sports betting. This is a net positive. I'm actually curious. I don't know if I'll do it, but I'm actually curious maybe to drive up to Denver this year and check it out at MGM Lounge. No kids allowed to. So dad has to leave the kids with the mom while he's going to the bathroom and a beer run to go degen off the Disney money.
Well, how about the other way around? The mom leaves the kids with the dad, and the mom degens off. That works too.
No discrimination. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the percentage of male sports bettors is much higher than the percentage of female sports bettors.
I understand. I'm just supporting female betting. That's all.
Well, maybe the kids stay with mom while dad degens, and then when dad gets back, mom can go degen.
There you go. All right, I'm in. Good.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. So there you go. So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up here. Thank a couple more sponsors here before we shut it down here for this episode. If you are tired of the same old bag of bland beef jerky, then grab a bag of Wicked Cuts today. The most tender jerky you can get your hands on. The tokens, fake and real, both tried it on the last podcast. I'm pretty sure they enjoyed it.
Yes.
Very good.
2 new flavors have arrived, the Applewood Smoked and the Token Tony Carolina Killer. Pick up a bag today at wickedcuts.co. If you use the promo code SQUARES20, which I'll put it right there on the screen, SQUARES20, SQUARES 20, you will get 20% off of your online purchase. Let them know the Vegas Squares sent you by using promo code SQUARES20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase. And also, Chai Poker, Vegas Squares first sponsor. Founded in July of 2016 as an organization dedicated to poker and charity. Chai is the Hebrew word for life, and it is often used in the Jewish culture. So Chai Poker is a combination of life and poker, aka the poker life. If you've had a big tournament score recently, please consider making a donation at chaipoker.com so they can continue to help charities all across Southern Nevada. And also a read from 12 Ounce. If you're itching to watch live box lacrosse, they've got you covered. The 12 Ounce Sports Cup is going on this month in Alberta, and they've got all the live action from the Great White North. Cody Jansen has the call as 5 teams battle it out on the floor for the inaugural 12 Ounce Sports Cup, which will be handed out on July 28th, only found on 12 Ounce Sports Network.
Excellent.
All right, boys. So that's going to wrap it up here for the NFL podcast. Mahomes getting big money. Mostert maybe is going to try to do the same. And we've got DJ in action at Broncos Stadium. So, all right, for Tony Johnson, for the Carolina killer himself, Token Tony, and for Mr. Timmy Dipshit over there, we appreciate you listening. We will catch you on the next one.